an episode! Peak Game of Thrones. It was so good and a perfect example of what Warner Brothers content is supposed to be. Pay attention, Zazie, baby. This is what we want. It's the yin to Disney's yang. The stories that Disney cannot tell, but that therefore we get a full plate with both Warner Brothers and Disney operating as they're supposed to. This is what Warner Brothers could and should be. And once again, an incredibly well-written episode. Not gonna lie, I winced when I saw the headline earlier that Miguel Sapochnik is leaving House of the Dragon for season 2 because he's exhausted. Are you kidding me? This success, which has just started and that he's never experienced before, tires him. I mean, he left with a first look deal with HBO, so he got something. He got a lovely parting gift. But boy, if House of the Dragon isn't as good without him, Game of Thrones fans will not forget. Just ask Benioff and Weiss, who to this day can't show their face anywhere without fearing boos, which I suspect they would get. All right, but wow, who's replacing Sapochnik to a degree? Alan Taylor. Thor: The Dark World, Terminator Genesis, The Many Saints of Newark, that Alan Taylor. I remember watching The Many Saints of Newark and being like, this is so awful. And I watched The Sopranos afterwards, and that was incredible. But I was like, who directed this piece of garbage? And then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, Alan Taylor, that tracks. That's his reputation today. And he tried to blame everybody else. He was like, you guys are mean. It's like, you served crap? All right, speaking of houses, though, he's been house HBO forever. You know, he started out on Sex and the City. He directed a ton of those episodes. He's also directed episodes, a number of them for The Sopranos, and he still botched the movie. Think about that, HBO. You were like, how can we lose? He did so many of the show episodes. Well, it was horrible. All right, he also did episodes of 6 Feet Under, Deadwood, and of course, Game of Thrones. Earlier on in the show's history, he then left as it went on and became more popular and better directed because he's tried to make all those crap movies. I mean, at least Ryan Condal becomes the show's sole showrunner. Condal is the co-creator of House of the Dragon along with George R.R. Martin, and he wrote the first 2 episodes himself, and he co-wrote this 3rd episode. So I feel a little better that he's at least fully in charge and not going anywhere. So Alan Taylor isn't a showrunner, but he's an executive producer. He's supposed to really help out with the directing. Oh man, I mean, it's happening whether we like it or not, so we'll see. All right, it's time for my top 6 moments of episode 3. And as always, be sure to share your own rankings and thoughts down below. And whoa, huge time jump. It's been now 3 years since the last episode. Viserys now has a 2-year-old son, with Alicent pretty far along with another child. That Viserys is making up for long. Although he did have unfortunately, did not turn out so well with his first wife for the most part. But wow. When he tells Rhaenyra the importance of multiplying, he follows his own advice. And Laenor is a man, a grown-up man, a dragon-riding man. Just you wait. Watch this character. Watch this character closely. All right, so moment number 6. A fork in the road of romance. Yes, Rhaenyra could not be flirting with 2 different men, as Ser Criston Cole is Daemon's opposite in every single way. This is like Betty Cooper and Veronica Lodge, and Rhaenyra, as Archie, just can't make up her mind. It's interesting, that Betty Cooper-Veronica Lodge metaphor is actually perfect. Quite frankly, when it comes to Christian, I suspect that just like a dragon, Rhaenyra is playing with her food. But we'll see. I did love her line to Christian that she might be the princess of Dragonstone, but she feels toothless. He reassured her she was not, as someone who has a crush on you would say. But more on Rhaenyra's multi-year temper tantrum later on in this video. She gets her own moment, and she also affects a lot of other people's moments. She's certainly a very big character. I'm very curious to see how everyone reacts when in episode 6, she's suddenly played by an entirely different actress. All right, moment number 5, Mrs. Viserys. As for the Queen, while everyone else realizes there are teams in this Game of Thrones, aka the houses, Alicent, young, sweet, naive Alicent, feels she doesn't have to pick sides. She doesn't advocate for her own house, and she tries to make both her husband and her best friend happy. You can't do it, Alicent. You can't do it. But in trying to please everyone as she is, will this make her as ineffective as her husband Viserys, the ultimate people pleaser who ironically pleases no one? We'll see. She does give Viserys very good advice when she bottom lines it about the war in the Stepstones. Forget what's best for any person. what's best for the realm, which shows she has potential as a player in the Game of Thrones. But her current game is too short-sighted. Game of Thrones is a long game. On that note, it is very interesting to watch how Alicent and Rhaenyra each play the Game of Thrones. Alicent realizes the place and limits of women in the realm and in politics overall, and she moves accordingly. While Rhaenyra balks at being forced into such guidelines. She won't get married. She doesn't even want to sit with all the other women at the wives' table, so to speak, something that still exists to this day. Rhaenyra wants to be in the room where it happens, yet seems to insist on an invite, even though her dad already sent her an invite. That's not enough. She seems to need an invite from everyone to feel that she's welcome. You don't get invited into the room where it happens. You barge in, darn it. And she really needs to work on that. We're going to talk about Rhaenyra's leadership skills a little bit later as well. But first, moment number 4, National Lampoon's Name Day Hunt. Yes, this might be a royal hunt to celebrate the name day, which, by the way, is an actual thing in Christianity, particularly in Europe. So it's the name day of the young prince, who many hope will be king instead of Rhaenyra. But it also feels very much like a typical family gathering, a cookout, as some of you said, which I thought was very clever, full of the typical shenanigans. I mean, I half expected to see Randy Quaid's National Lampoon character wandering around, and quite frankly, he'd fit right in. This was a very clever way to bring so many houses together. Enter House Lannister. Jefferson Hall, by the way, is so good as twins, making them so unique, not just in appearance, but body language, and in very subtle ways. And the VFX is so seamless that the first time I watched this episode, I didn't even realize they were twins and played by the same actor. But it's really well done. When they were sitting there eating together, I was like, this is a master in subtlety. Back to houses, when Rhaenyra triumphantly brings back the wild boar, pay attention to the tableaus of who's watching her. You guys are all looking at Rhaenyra, understandably, but take a look at those tableaus. Those groupings are not by accident. Lots of politicking at this potluck. Interestingly, I feel the hand overplays his hand, suggesting Rhaenyra marry her own stepbrother and his grandson, therefore assuring that his grandson would ascend to the throne, so to speak. But he's just 2 years old. Viserys laughs half in disbelief and half in horror. There, also, speaking of advice, Lord Strong proves to be a very worthy advisor, not suggesting his own son for Rhaenyra's hand in marriage, although you'll find that quite funny soon. But he says that this is a chance for Viserys to right the wrong of himself not marrying Laenor Velaryon by having Rhaena marry Laenor. All the same reasons still stand from 3 years ago, but now it will also help maybe with the war in the Stepstones. Very good advice. Very good advice. Then that leads to moment number 3, Aegon, Aegon, Aegon. Yeah, that's right. Rhaenyra is having a real Jan Brady moment right now, including listening to music in her room on repeat, only since this is medieval times, it's some poor dude whose fingers really hurt from playing the same song over and over again. 3 years Rhaenyra has wasted. She's just wasted these 3 years. She hasn't married, as her father points out. You need to shore up your political position. You need to multiply to strengthen your numbers and your claim. The bloodline, the royal bloodline. Nor has she worked to even prove that she should be queen. And this is an issue that many people don't realize even today. It is extremely hard to convince people that they should do something out of moral or ethical obligation. We should have a female king. You shouldn't have a problem with the queen on the Iron Throne. You should do what's right. That's not nearly as effective as convincing people to do something that benefits themselves, what's in their best interests. Case in point, everyone keeping saying that you need to marry a Velaryon because it just makes sense. So Rhaenyra, even though she wants to be queen, has made no allies since that was declared, political or military. I guess there's Criston Cole, but he doesn't have any friends either. And again, she hasn't married. Perhaps Rhaenyra's most telling line is, "No one's here for me," which works on multiple levels where she's concerned, both in terms that no one has shown up to this hunt to celebrate her, and that nobody is helping in her in her pursuit and claim to the throne. But yet, is Rhaenyra there for anyone else? Not even for her father, allowing him to drift further away from her and anchor himself with his new family, which has combating heirs to the throne. She should have kept him tight and close. Thank goodness he feels super guilty about what he did to her mother. More on that in moment number 1, which is the only thing right now helping her claim. And I guess that deer walked up to her. No one even saw it. All right, so anyway, I know a lot of you were really captivated by that, but I don't know. I don't even know if she made the right call. But I'd also like to point out that Rhaenyra, who feels all is lost and is fighting for her life in so many ways, takes a bloodbath during this episode just like Daemon does. And as Viserys says, they are very much alike. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. But you know who Daemon is also like? And I thought this was amazing. Moment number 2, Daemon's amazing Homelander impression. They are strikingly similar characters. Not just the bloodbath, but also his ego and his temper and the feeling that he is owed something. He even has a Homelander moment at the beginning of the episode when he swoops in on Caraxes and crushes a nobody, like when Homelander, stepped on the Ant-Man knockoff, right? It was like the exact same scene almost. The size of Bloodworm, by the way, is incredible, awe-inspiring. What a disgusting, awesome dragon. I just love that. I like the idea that the dragons look quite different. It's just so cool. And like Homelander, Daemon feels that everything is about him and that the whole world is out to get him. And often he's also right. He also seems to get away with anything, like when he literally kills or tries to kill the messenger. Although Matt Smith's elegant hand gestures during that scene, I noticed your hand acting, Matt. 2 thumbs up for my own hands. I mean, that was incredible. I mean, just the way he held his fingers. It was so aristocratic, and he was also just so angry. Many people pointed out online last night of the chatter that was there. And as I said in Movie Math, I wonder if Rings of Power hurt some of the enthusiasm for this show, which would be a shame. But he hardly spoke at all this episode, and yet he still made such a strong impression. So why does Daemon attack the messenger? Because he will not be embarrassed by a rescue from his brother. That makes Daemon so angry, he becomes an army of one. So you'd think a dragon versus a crab would be a very short fight. But as it turns out in this war in the Stepstones, not if the crab is smart. It's like a tortoise and the hare situation. The crab hides in caves, and the crab uses guerrilla warfare to thwart superior firepower, aka dragons. Many people were like, how is this war still going on if you have dragons? It's very interesting. It's a lot like, the Revolutionary War and also some of the conflicts in the Middle East. Very, very difficult. Superior firepower does not guarantee victory. But there's also another saying, and that's there's nothing more dangerous than someone with nothing to lose. And that's what Daemon becomes at the end of this episode. And he has everything to gain. So he pretends to surrender to be the bait himself for the crab feeder to draw those forces out. And then thankfully, he finally inspires his troops to join him at the last moment. That's Laenor on his dragon Seasmoke. Great name for a dragon and great branding for House Velaryon, by the way. I can't believe Daemon, though, wasn't more worried about catching Grayscale. I was like, grab the crab feeder by his fabric on his coat, man. And it's incredible that the crab feeder, such a visually interesting character, only lasted an episode and a half, basically, underscoring how fast this show is moving, and its focus is on the houses, particularly House Targaryen. By the way, did anyone else swear that they heard Mortal Kombat, like in the distance during that fight? And it's a Warner Brothers property. They could do that. But I almost felt for sure like I heard that out. Like right in that moment of silence when they had the camera on Daemon, I could have sworn I heard that. Both times that I watched the episode. Finally, while Daemon fights, his brother Viserys feasts, or more accurately, gets wasted while on stage. All right, so moment number 1, this is a doozy. The fool who knows he's a fool. Wow. Now you might be like, how on earth does this top all of Daemon's action? The writing and the acting, my friend. The writing and the acting. What an incredible episode for Paddy Considine. This is the episode that they're going to send out for his best actor consideration, I would think. I mean, I've seen the first 6 episodes. Maybe he has like even another one towards the end. But I mean, I think with this episode, it's so good that this is going to be a major episode in getting awards, nominations, and I think writing and acting for this show. We see so many stupid characters in entertainment, but so few who are aware they are stupid. The tragic fool. And that's shown here with the stunning metaphor of the stag. Fascinatingly, stags have also played an important role in The Crown, which I believe House of the Dragon is heavily inspired by. But total metaphor here for his leadership. Doing something that's not his idea, that he doesn't want to do, no skill of his own, making a total mess of it, causing unnecessary suffering, everybody watching, just a total farce. He doesn't even want to kill that stag. He has that spear from Jason Lannister. It's just the pompousness of it all. It's not even a real fight. And it's so embarrassing for him. And during this scene, and this is great writing, and this just shows a great franchise and a great show. Because you know what occurred to me? You know what popped into my mind? Ned Stark's speech about a leader having to do his own killing. I was like, wow, what a difference between these two men. Although I don't think anyone should maybe take advice from Ned Stark. But it was really interesting, that difference. Now, as I said, Rhaenyra sees a buck too and tells Criston not to kill it. And some of you are like, oh, the buck is anointing her the true ruler. And I'm like, again, nobody else saw it. So she's like, damn it, if only we had cameras back then. And also, I don't know, because, in The Crown, killing the stag was the right move. So I don't even know if necessarily that was the right thing that Rhaenyra did. That was just really interesting. But then that leads, moment number one, the fool who knows he's a fool, also is a very important part of the storyline here, is wrestling with whether or not he should name his new son Aegon heir over Rhaenyra. If he should, redo that. Don't take backsies. He's like, but maybe. I mean, on the one hand, as he says in that amazing scene before that raging fire, the raging fire, the heritage, the legacy of House Targaryen, he had a dream of a son who would rule, and he wants to not just be a dragon rider, but a dreamer. Now, when he first said that our house is full of dragon riders, but not many dreamers, I felt he meant people who had ambitions and and lofty goals, but instead he just wants the gift of premonition. All the glory of easy answers, which sounds totally like Viserys. It came to me in a dream. Whew, glad I don't have to think about that anymore. Anyway, but speaking of thinking of things, he was so fixated on that dream because his sons kept dying by his first wife that it drove him to have his first wife killed in that horrific manner. And the sons still died. But then, as Aegon II, that dream realized through his second wife. Does he, after all, have the gift of prophecy that he had given up on? Or is he a fool for believing that he does? I mean, at least to Viserys' credit, he bothers to ask these questions of himself. Many would not. They'd be like, my dream was right. I'm done. But then on the other hand, so there's the dream and he wanting to have that come true and that Aegon is the easy heir because it's what everyone expects. It's what everyone wants. However, he not only made a promise to Rhaenyra, but that promise is again to try and rid himself of the guilt of what happened to his first wife. It seems that of all the decisions that Viserys ever has to make and ever will make, this is the one that he decides to take a stand on, that this is where he's going to do the right thing. I mean, I wish Rhaenyra was worthy of such a stand, to be honest with you. Again, I think she's doing a very poor job with her leadership, but, perhaps she will grow into that ruler. But Viserys' ultimate indecision, yet again, his torn loyalty between his firstborn children from two different women has huge implications for this story. I mean, it's really going to mushroom into something huge. I mean, he says he's picked Rhaenyra. Some of you might be like, but he did make a decisive choice. No, he didn't. Because then he should put her on the throne. He should retire, He's pulling a Queen Elizabeth. He's like, oh yeah, Charles, someday. He should put Rhaenyra on the throne or truly make her his apprentice. Show her the ropes and have her be very much like she should already be co-leading to a degree, so it's done. But he's not doing any of that. Again, as I said, 3 vital years wasted for Rhaenyra, both by her father for her in her stead and by herself. So those are my top 6 moments for episode 3 of House of the Dragon. What do you think of how things are percolating? Share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.